I really like to take inspiration from everything. So if I go to, I don't know, I go watch a superhero movie or something, then something about that might strike me as interesting. Or I go to a gallery and I see an old master painting, for instance, and that might influence me. And I did use old masters a great deal for a previous project called Memories and Nightmares, and very kind of consciously echoed kind of well-known paintings. For Quinn, I think more I wanted to sort of speak to, I suppose, the kind of the colour palette that we perceive existed at the time. Slightly faded, perhaps, whereas, of course, in the 40s, things were just as not faded as they were now, and they weren't in black and white. But I like to see if I can trigger a sense of recognition, so that people think perhaps they've seen it before, or they go, oh yes, it felt like that. You know, I hope. At least that's what I try to do. Of course, Quinn is partly me, obviously, because, in fact, a good friend of mine said a while ago that a photographer, he said, eventually we all photograph ourselves. And there is some truth to that. Even if you're photographing somebody who looks entirely different, you can't but put yourself into that, you know? But he is mostly a fictional kind of amalgam of a bit of me and a bit of some of my friends and maybe some of my family and some total fiction. He is himself. So I've been using large format film for my work for really quite a long time now, and I love it. I love it for its intricate detail and for the process, which is just mad, with a black cloth over your head. And I love my little brass and rosewood Wisterland camera. But I realised that I wanted to do something that was in addition to that. So I didn't want to not take large format stills, but I felt there was something about the fact that this was a moving journey that it felt appropriate to also have some moving pictures. But I didn't want to make a film. I didn't want to be moving the camera. I didn't want to sort of direct the viewer in that way. So I feel that the film pieces, the video pieces, are moving photographs rather than films. But the reason I wanted to include them, and the reason that they are there alongside stills that are quite similar, is that the pictures and the films might be slightly different. So when I started in 2014, I didn't really have an end date in mind. I thought, I'm going to start and I'm going to see how it goes, and I didn't expect it to take quite as long as it did. So I think we started in Cornwall in 2014, and then we were in the very far north of Scotland, Sutherland, in 2018. And in fact, the picture, this is one of the later ones. This was November 2017. So during the project, there were so many interesting places to go, because the British landscape just is so different from the Cornwall, where it's very cold and very rocky and very rugged, and then through the Midlands, where it's a little bit softer, Yorkshire, very, very different, and then up to north of Scotland. So almost every single one has a ridiculous story about doing something silly. So because I wanted remote locations, sometimes we had to walk to them, well, quite often actually. The further north we got, the more we needed to walk. This picture here, in fact, is probably the most remote of all the ones we did. I flew Sam and my brother, Will, who's playing the crofter, McBray. I flew them to Inverness. I drove to Inverness, picked them up, drove to the other side of Scotland. We parked the car, got on backpacks, and carried everything, including costumes and food and sleeping bags and a tent and a stove and stuff, 4 hours from the nearest road to a bothy. And we got there only just because my head torch ran out of battery. So we just got there. And the next morning we shot this, and then we had to walk out again. But there's something, I really love remote. I like remote places. I think there's something magical about them, about feeling that not every single person has been there. And even if many people have been there, it still has that feeling of, the air's different. Once I'd finished the filming and once I'd finished making the images, I realized I wasn't finished. I wasn't quite done, and it was there, but there was something that needed to thread it together. And I spent quite a long time thinking, how would I add words? How would I add words to the project without telling a story in a really sort of didactic kind of way? So eventually the idea of the diary as letter form kind of came after various different stops and starts in different areas. What I really enjoyed about this show is that I've got an entire room that has no photographs in and no film in it, and it's got words. So of course, Quinn's belongings, obviously there had to be some, because he's on a journey, so there was going to be some, right? There had to have something in the suitcase, and they've sort of built up over time, and I really like objects. There's something fascinating about holding something that has been in existence and has gone through various hands and was a tool and is now no longer a tool, or just the resonance of things existing and moving around the world, including those in the show here at the Herbert alongside items from the collection was so exciting because it never occurred to me that I could do something like that. So working with Ali and picking objects that she selected that had a resonance for her and a resonance for Coventry specifically, and putting them literally next to Quinn's objects has elevated the fictional objects. And of course they are fictional, but they also exist in another sense that they are where they came from. So Quinn's penknife was not Quinn's penknife forever. It's a World War II army issue knife, so it had an existence before that. Then it became fictional, and now it's almost become real again, next to the historical collection. So that's been really exciting, and I'd like to hopefully can do more of those kind of things in future. That'd be really nice.